The Newcomer's Guide to the Magical World. By Ralph Rambling. Magus, singular, magi, plural. Gender-neutral term for all people with magic abilities. Generally not used for half or part humans without magi ancestry. Welcome home. During the dark times, magi would sneak out of their ordinary-seeming homes once in a while to take part in secret gatherings. For spiritual, cultural or recreational events. Since their beliefs and practices were outlawed, most lived ordinary lives in ordinary towns and villages. But for social gatherings of their own kin, they would take on their cloaks, often invisibility cloaks, and whisk away into the deep forests and other places, hidden from the eyes of the Muggles. Here they could shed their clothes, which to them were a symbol of their segregation and oppression, by and from the Muggle-World. Reconnecting with nature and each other. Honestly and openly, with no veil of pretension between them. Truly and full-heartedly embracing who they really were. They laughed, sang, feasted and drank. Danced and told the old stories around the bonfire. The old songs of ice and fire, of summer and winter, of pride and prejudice, of peace and war. When this heritage was rekindled by the waves of immigration that came during the Muggle-World's period of colonization, finally the majority of Europe's magi decided to fully retreat from the Muggle-World and live in small private communities where they could live freely, undisturbed and undiscriminated. Thus both cultures finally separated and became opposites to each other in many ways. To support the efforts to integrate Muggle-born magi into our community, I wrote this handy little handbook to clear up certain confusions that seem to come up a lot, and help dealing with the inevitable culture shock that many newcomers tend to suffer from. I hope you will find this guide helpful and appreciate our community and customs a bit more after reading this. Welcome home, friend. Honor and respect. The magical community keeps changing, as every community does, but some customs are still highly relevant. As is the honor system. The word honor has become a synonym for respect in the magi community over the centuries, and I will try to explain to you how respect is shown and earned in our community. To honor someone comes with two major aspects: debt and equality. In other words, if someone gives you something, you owe him back something of roughly equal value. It is dishonorable to not repay debt, but it's also dishonorable to get compensation by force or manipulation. If someone can repay you, it's honorable for them to do so. If someone cannot repay you, it's the honorable thing for you to wait patiently. It is, however, seen as a highly noble act to relieve someone from their debt, either by forgiving it or paying it for them, without expecting anything in return, except maybe general gratitude. We are also bound by the ancient rules of property possession. These ancient magical rules are ingrained into reality itself and go as follows. For something, anything, to be owned by someone, it has to either be found unintentionally, exchanged consensually for something else, or given freely, as a gift. The second aspect is pretty self-explanatory, but to sum it up. Only treat others as you would like others to treat you. And only act according to principles that you wish to become universal law. Or in other words, there are universal rights and freedoms of respect and dignity that everyone is given automatically. And it is also automatically every individual's responsibility, including you, to respect and sometimes protect these universal rights and freedoms of others as well. Wardrobe etiquette. As mentioned before, clothing is seen as a tool of oppression that most magi see as obsolete anyway. Exceptions being the Google and small shoulder cloaks, due to their historical significance and symbolism. Boots, belts and bags are accepted for practical reasons. The classic, often pointy hat, however, entered our culture as an active sign of rebellion against discrimination. During the dark times, the so-called alewives, Muggle, and magi women who were brewing alcoholic beverages, for commercial reasons, wore high hats as a symbol of their trade. It was a profession still shared by both communities and created a secret bond of friendship between us. When they were suddenly badmouthed by Muggle merchants to destroy their business so the merchants could monopolize it, the magical community showed their respect and support to the alewives by wearing different variations of the alewives hat, which is still a fashion trend in the magical community till this day. Magi also have high respect for the Scottish kilt as a symbol of resistance against government oppression, even though most refuse to wear it because they find it too covering. Still, many like to wear belt pouches, similar in appearance to the once worn over Scottish kilts, or skirts which are open in the front and the back to not cover too much. As long as a piece of clothing doesn't cover or obscure the face, chest, ass or genitalia, it is usually seen as a harmless ornament. So if you feel creative, have fun with creating your own designs. The magical world also doesn't have a concept of copyright restrictions or trademarks. Only laws against identity theft. So you can enjoy your creative freedom in the magical world. Allied races. There are many different, non-human types of members of the magical community. Some prefer solitude and isolation, but accept visitors and sometimes send ambassadors or tourists into the rest of the magical community. One of these honorable races are the dwarfs, who are the finest craftsmen in the world. They prefer to live and work underground, providing us with precious metals, a stable banking system and underground tunnel networks. The half-humans such as centaurs, satyrs, mermaids and more help us have an eye on nature and dangers to our society. And of course the elves, which come in many variations. The human-like ones are gifted with natural beauty and immortality. Wood elves, nymphs, dryads, centaurs and satyrs prefer the solitude of nature reserves and try to live in harmony with the ecosystem surrounding them. Light elves, however, enhance and enforce the life around them, living in evergreen forests, where many magi go to find peace, relaxation and enlightenment. Traveling to their lands is often advised for therapeutic or physical rehabilitation reasons. The house elves are small, friendly creatures. Their origin is shrouded in mystery, but it is believed that they might be related to goblins, since the German word for goblin is kobold. But this word, as well as wichtel, also describes a small house spirit that loves to cook, clean and run the household whenever the humans are asleep. These elves often live in old mansions or castles and are often on friendly terms with the Magi residents. They tend to have a relationship with Magi that's beneficial for both sides. They often receive food, shelter and tokens of appreciation as thanks for their services. Their magic binds them to the residence they live in. They consider it their home and their responsibility to care for it. But by gifting them clothing, they can be released from this magical bond. That's why they only accept clothes as a retirement or parting gift. Biology acceptance and body positivity. Magi are taught early on to admire the beauty of the natural world and accept their own natural bodies and the natural bodies of others, the way they are. Tastes vary from person to person, and there is no universal standard that could ever be met. Insulting someone's natural body or biology, or boasting or competing on matters of looks or material possessions, is therefore highly disrespectful. We only admire natural things like flowers or the cuteness of soft animals, for example. Which of course includes the human body too. That's why we aspire to be healthy and in good shape, only for our own personal well-being. We use natural self-care products, like oils, herbs, hot springs and healing clay, for recreational purposes. And we still admire those who put great effort into enhancing their bodies naturally, through training and dedication. Those who can meditate, reaching spiritual or intellectual enlightenment, those who train their bodies for harsh environments and great trials and tribulations, and those who show great skills with food preparation and dietary knowledge, are usually praised and recognized for their efforts. Similar to Muggle cultures, we praise outstanding individuals, but without comparing us to them in an unhealthy manner. How both cultures handle admiration of and physical attraction to the naked body, however, is very different. In Magi culture, an erected penis is seen as a compliment and as a symbol of fertility and good health. It's a natural reaction of the body and shows the admiration and recognition of another person's attractiveness. Since Magi are used to seeing naked bodies, spontaneous erections are rare, and thus perceived as tokens of appreciation. They are most likely to happen between people that are already lovers. Most people often unintentionally reveal themselves as outsiders by getting erections or by blushing intensely. Since boys and men from Muggle cultures often have erections, theirs are often simply ignored by Magi, since they are too common to be considered special anymore. Girls and women often give away that they are outsiders, through stiff and awkward movements, and the unnecessary reflex to cover themselves with their hands, from time to time. Which is problematic, since it puts Magi in the awkward situation of having to balance their feelings of empathy against the historical meaning of this gesture, as an insult. To cover your body, in front of another, used to be a symbolic gesture of distrust or even disrespect towards another. Basically accusing the other indirectly of being untrustworthy or a traitor. Please keep that in mind if you get nervous around Magi. Most Magi, however, do not take it as an insult at first if they know the person performing the gesture is an outsider. Unless the person covers themselves constantly or for extended periods of time. It's in our nature to feel distrusted and eventually disrespected after a while. People might react by leaving or refusing to talk to the person who is covering themselves. Unless it's an obvious case of emergency. But you might wonder what the appropriate way to deal with an erection is. If a person gets an uncontrolled erection and feels the need to relieve themselves through masturbating, it's important to adhere to the following customs to not cause confusion. Magi recognize the different forms of attraction that people can experience. Emotional attraction, like love or friendship, can be very different, or even detached, from simple physical attraction. That's one reason why most masturbation is done discreetly, behind a bush, tree, or curtain. To not unintentionally give the impression of emotional or romantic attraction to the onlookers, when only physical attraction exists. So masturbating in public spaces is not strictly prohibited, as long as it happens with clear intentions and consent. You don't need anyone's consent to masturbate, not even from the person you are masturbating to, as long as you do it discreetly, as described earlier. It's natural to not being able to make up your mind about what you are physically attracted to and not wanting to cause confusion among your peers over it. But you have to get consent from someone if you wish to masturbate to them openly, no matter if in public or when you are alone with them. Consent towards acts of sexuality is of the highest importance. If you find yourself in the position of being physically and or romantically attracted to someone, first explain your feelings to them in a private conversation. If you, for example, find a friend of yours physically attractive but do not harbor romantic feelings for them, ask your friends if masturbating to them, without romantic feelings, is okay for them. That's important, since masturbating to someone, without context, can be seen as a big compliment, on the same level as asking for a date. Asking might bear the risk of emotionally confusing said friend, but it is important to show your honest intentions and feelings. Otherwise, oppressed desires or feelings could break an otherwise healthy relationship. After you have established the nature and terms of the relationship with someone, it's the custom to tell friends and family about it. This might sound obvious at first, but when somebody's heart gets broken because two people have a different opinion of what their relationship should be, some find it too painful or embarrassing to talk about it to others. But this creates bottled up feelings of anger and resentment that can hurt yourself or others around you. You can take your time, but eventually, it's important to talk about these feelings in order to process and overcome them. If someone agrees to let you masturbate to them openly, it is regarded as the highest of sexual privileges outside of an actual romantic relationship. If you let someone masturbate to you, they owe you their highest thanks and respect for that. This is where the debt part of the honor system can come back into play. But let's move on to the next step. In a romantic relationship, kissing and different kinds of activities, such as anal sex, oral sex, boob sex, or touching and rubbing another's genitalia, are commonplace and considered preparation for marriage. In Muggle terms, you would consider them an act of getting engaged. Vaginal sex is the ultimate expression of love and thus is considered as an act of marriage. So it's not wise to fool around with it. There are wedding ceremonies where people make a magic vow to always love and honor each other, but having vaginal sex is what makes a marriage between a male and a female binding in the eyes of many people. Which honestly puts less pressure on same-sex couples. To sum up our little lesson, please never disrespect other people's feelings, especially if you only feel physically attracted to them. Your actions will have consequences, no matter how you alone feel or think about them. Therapy. Psychological therapy has recently become an integral part of Magi society. At first, the Magi community was against psychology. After all, a psychologist swears an oath to never reveal their patient's secrets. And you might know at this point what Magi think about keeping secrets from each other. But after a while, people realized that we all have stupid or irrational thoughts and feelings sometimes, and telling friends or family members about them could hurt them directly or indirectly. But telling those thoughts to a neutral outsider, who is discreet about the information, can be beneficial and even healthy for a social environment. So feel free to get an appointment with a certified therapist when too much anger, sadness, or confusion is brewing inside you. They are always happy to help. Epilogue. Well, this was my little pocket guide to the magical community. I hope this information has helped you to understand our community and history a little better. I hope you found some new appreciation for the things around you and make lots of friends in your new home. Thank you for listening and farewell, my friend.